You're welcome back to the Pulse on your election headquarters. Now, roads and elections, they're always a feature in political campaigns, and this year is no different. Today, the issue of poor roads in some parts of the country has taken center stage with demonstrations, accusations, and appeals for government to fix dilapidated roads which are greatly affecting economic activities. Well, here in the Greater Accra region, the NPP has been addressing a news conference to respond to the president's criticism of the NPP flag bearer who had alleged that the government had neglected many roads on his tour in the western region. Here's the Acting General Secretary, John Boadu.
We all know that John Mahama is too sensitive to fair criticism, but it gives him no excuse to use unpresidential language against his opponents, chiefs and the people of the western region. To him, all the people complaining about bad roads in the western region are sleeping. He should tell that to the commercial drivers who spend over 10 hours just to travel from Sejuyoso in the northern part of the western region to Takoradi, the regional capital. He must tell that to the chiefs and people who cannot get their farm products to the markets because of bad roads. During Akufo-Addo's tour of the region, he saw for himself how bad roads affect economic and social activities of the communities there. Oji Ahowo Kweku JB, the second of the Anyaso traditional area, Nana Kojo Adwa, the fourth of Adobo Krom, that's Bia East, Nana Enimba for the second of Isam, Bia West, Nana Intado, the third of Bonsai, Dwaboso, Nana Kwame Nkrumah, the first of Bodi, Nana Bedu Kwesi Kwatin, the second of Akontombra, and the chiefs and people of Himan, Prisia, Uni Valley, all mentioned the bad state of their roads as their number one concern. How can a president who has made infrastructural projects his main campaign message think it is wise and decent to insult those who ask for the same thing? Isn't this strange?
That's for the NPP. Well, the back and forth between the NPP and the NDC is continuing. In fact, today the president has been meeting traditional leaders in the western region who have been raising concerns with him about the poor state of some roads in the Impoho traditional area. They've been explaining to his subjects that the administration's achievements and the appeal to them for the works done on their roads to be completed in earnest. We brought you some details earlier today. Well, it doesn't end in the western region in terms of roads, because in the Volta region it's now become a political potato. It's simple today per a demonstration. No road, no vote. Let's get more details from Ivy Setoji. She's joining me online. She covered a demonstration today in parts of the region. Ivy, good afternoon to you. Which specific towns did these demonstrators show their anger about the state of the roads?
The specific towns are Somewhere, Udo, and Kakla. Those are the three communities that have been affected. Actually, these three communities are saying that their roads are bad. Government has not done anything about it for some time now after promises next to them. So they want government to do something, because those roads, according to them, linked to Togo, and it's shorter. It's a shorter route through Togo. So they want government to make sure that those roads in those three communities are constructed as early as possible to avoid anything, like especially the fact that they will not go to the post on December 7th if the government doesn't come to their aid.
Now, these communities, they are found in which constituency, Ivy?
They are found in the whole central constituency.
In all the demonstrations we saw on the streets today, Ivy, has there been a response from local authorities explaining why the roads are still yet to be fixed?
Well, the petition was given to the NCE for whole central Adinhira. She did not say anything or say any reason why it has not been done, but she assured the residents that the roads are going to be constructed as soon as possible. So they should just relax and watch government do what is necessary. That was what she told them.
All right. Thank you, Ivy, for that update. I'm sure that across the country, there are many areas in the country where the roads are not good. And we've seen a lot of talk about how roads become a big political matter in almost every election year. And it's not only about the availability of roads that's of concern now. It's also about the quality coming up strongly, as badly constructed roads are also claiming many lives. From gullies to depressions, road defects have been blamed for many of the 2,000 people who are killed every year in this country to road accidents. Today, Joy News puts the spotlight on how depressions on otherwise good roads are claiming many lives. First, my colleague Fifi Kumsin visited the Bondasi section of the main Tema Aflao Road and tells the story of how an age-old sunken section of the road is causing many accidents and killing road users.
The road is so smooth, you can literally glide on it.
But there is a trap, a deadly trap, a road depression into which speeding vehicles slam almost every second. Many people have died here because their drivers lost control of the steering wheel after running through this sunken section of the road. The driver of this approaching tipper truck nearly killed us while we were filming the story after he, for a moment, lost control of the steering.
I was experiencing that this thing, but you know, it was a night. Daytime, I'm coming back from the place where I went. It's very risky. Yes, it's very risky. A lot of drivers don't know. So before you realize, then you enter. And maybe somebody is driving in the night. He don't know there is that in there. So anything can happen anytime.
Since Joy News began following the story, a number of people have sent us their experiences. The Pram Pram District Police has recorded dozens of accidents at the spot, including one by Finance Minister Seth Terkper, our sources say. District Police Commander Superintendent Alex Kumangtani has himself had that awful experience of driving into the depression.
We realized that there is a dip in the middle of the road. In time past, we communicated to the appropriate authorities, that is the Ghana Highways Authority. The remedy, the immediate one that they was to bring a signpost to place at that place in order to warn motorists about the dangers. But it still do occur.
That's because the road sign to warn drivers of the danger is too close to the death spot, making it rather useless.
Because I'm a mechanic, so I trim call battle all the time. And it's a baby, I win one. Yeah, me, I mean, him quantity, I do a miniature, but more money there. But one be black auto, was after I know I got a gata on my bridge, you know, no macotum. Yeah, what's the
On the average, 2,000 people are killed on Ghana's roads each year, often blamed on human error. But the situation on the Tema Aplau Road is a stark case of human negligence by the people who spend the taxpayers' money.
The depression, that's good. Must be a nasty experience on that road. Well, poor road networks at Dodoaman from Dodofi and other adjoining communities in the KJB district of the Volta region are also affected in almost all aspects of their life, with healthcare, farming and transportation the most hardest hit. Komladon reports that several promises and assurances by the district assembly to fix the roads according to residents have remained unfulfilled. They fear the worst could happen if the situation continues.
Dodo Amanfrom is a neat settler community with a population of over 5,000, predominantly a farming community rich in cocoa, maize and other foodstuffs. The community serves as the go-to foodstuff hub for most part of the Volta region of Ghana. During active harvest seasons, tons of foodstuffs are produced, which traders from Ho, Hohwe, Krache, Jasikan, Bando, Aflau, Accra, Tema and parts of northern Ghana travel to purchase for resale. Despite being the second largest foodstuff market in the entire region, Dodo Amanfrom cannot boast of any motorable road linking the community. The situation gets even worse when it rains, as the absence of drainage system causes severe erosion. For several years, farmers here have had to contend with huge revenue losses due to the glut and bumper harvest seasons. This is because buyers and other traders are unable to reach farmers owing to the bad roads. On our way to Dudufie up the hill, we discovered a truck stuck in one of the deep gullies in the road. It took the intervention of some youth in the area to assist the driver get out of the sticky situation. According to the paramount chief of Dodo Amanfrom, Dasibre Obueni Osaberia VI, several calls and appeals to the district assembly to rehabilitate the deplorable roads in the area have been unheeded too.
My traditional area has been starved of development. The roads in other parts of the district have been done, but we have been neglected.
He said President John Dramani Mahama, during his accounting to the People's Tour of the Volta region last 2 months, promised the roads in the area will be fixed, but that is yet to be fulfilled.
We are appealing to government to come to our aid. The president was here last 2 months and we petitioned him, but we haven't seen anything.
In Koswahini of Dodo Amanfrom, Kojo Nyame also laments the state of roads that's crippling every business activity in the area.
It is true, the road is terrible. Dodo Amanfrom is a market center. The people are farmers as well as traders. For about almost 2 to 3 years now, the road is unmotorable. They have made all efforts for the government to construct the road. All efforts have been proved better. Recently, when our president came to Pepesu, we made our appeal to him. He promised, he told his Minister of Roads and Highways that he should see to it. Up to now, we have not heard anything, and we are almost cut off from the rest of the country.
Meanwhile, the KJB District Chief Executive, Jacob Asokonde, says the roads in question are of utmost concern to the Assembly, adding that the contracts have been awarded and work will soon commence. He said the only hiccup is the issuance of contract letters to the contractor, a process he describes as far advanced. 3 Metro Mass Transit buses that ply Amanfrom to Hohwe and Accra take several hours to arrive and depart due to the bad nature of the roads. Some inhabitants say they sometimes spend a whole day en route to Accra because the buses must carefully ply the gully-ridden roads.
The roads are very deplorable. We have developed waist pains as a result. We need urgent help.
We are traders from Ashaiman, but the bad roads delay our travels. We stay as long as 3 days to 1 week and buses fail to arrive. The main form of transportation here has been reduced to only the motorbike, which has indirectly created jobs for the youth in the area. But even the motorbike riders have issues with the road. Reports of pregnant women suffering labor complication and general loss of lives of residents due to delays in transporting them to the nearest referral facility at Papase are rife in Amanfrom, and residents fear the worst may befall them before authorities decide to act.
So roads affecting people's lives in almost every regard, and it's also become a political potato. But still, speaking of elections, one of the major issues that comes up in almost every election year is the promises made as regards women. What can be given to them to improve their lives in terms of promises from government? Well, the gender group Abantu for Development says it is worried government has failed to meet a lot of demands published in its manifesto as far back in 2004. The group and some other women's groups say issues like economic equality for women have been ignored, although they spoke about them in their manifesto some 12 years ago. Director Dr. Rose Mensah-Kutin said this at the launch of the second edition of the Women's Manifesto. She spoke with my colleague, Beatrice Edo.
Take the Women's Manifesto. There are 10 critical areas of concern that were outlined. We have women's economic empowerment, we have women in land, we have even women and the media. So there are 10 critical areas. Now, when you look at each of the areas, you see that they were discussed generally, and then the gender issues were identified. Following that, you have demands. If you look at all the demands containing in the document, there are very few that have specifically been met. For example, with women's economic empowerment, we wanted a transformation of the economy such that women and men can work and benefit from whatever resources are available.
Specifically, what do you mean by that?
Yeah. So, for instance, we felt that the economy as it is structured and the policies that we have implemented from the structural adjustment period up until now have really eroded women's opportunities for improved livelihoods. So we wanted a change from that. That has not happened. We basically implement a neoliberal economy.
So I want to understand, if you say the economic structures, is it that women are not allowed to be employed in certain areas, or their salaries are not up to how much the men earn? Specifically, what do you mean?
Our economy is structured in such a way that we are in an inferior position in relation to the global economy. And where that happens, women are the ones who lose out. So, for instance, if the government moves away from a certain sector, like water privatization, the manifesto speaks against water privatization in the sense that when water is privatized, then it means it has to be bought. And if it has to be bought, then women whose households cannot afford to buy water will have to go and carry it from inferior sources, and that has implications for the health of the citizens. So that is something that has still not been met. If you take the issues of land, some work has been done around women and land, but there is as yet no policy in place that provides equal access of land to women and men. So it goes on and on and on with reference to all the sections contained in the manifesto, even though some laws have been put in place. For example, the domestic violence law was not passed when the manifesto was first published. Now we have a manifesto, we have a domestic violence law in place, but then we have problems in terms of the implementation. So this is the general trend that we have noted, and that is why we worked on the second edition to identify the areas of some change and then reiterate the importance of addressing the remaining demands contained in the document.
Indeed, I was coming to that. So does it mean that this new document you have launched today has these demands that were not met in the previous one?
Very clearly outlined. We have identified, it's not fundamentally different from the old edition. But what we have done is we have a session for each of the 10 sessions where we call progress made. So we list the areas of progress and then we move on to identify the remaining demands. So the progress made is identified and then the outstanding demands are also outlined.
Let's talk about the affirmative action bill. We understand that Cabinet has passed it, is now gone to Parliament. Are you concerned about the pace at which the bill is going and probably its eventual passage into law later?
As a gender activist, I'm not surprised in the sense that this is usually the attitude to the women's rights agenda. But we are hopeful because we are committed as women's rights activists to continue working with the relevant agencies to get it passed. Many of the ministers or the stakeholders who are supposed to act to ensure that it is passed have demonstrated commitment. So we will stand on that and demand for real action. However, the passage of the Affirmative Action Bill into law in itself will not guarantee that women's rights and gender equality form part of our body politic. What is important is that we all demonstrate commitment to the laws and agreements that we have signed all over, and that we act in a way that is responsive to both women and men in this country, because it will do us good as citizens of this country.
Finally, some people are of the opinion that this may not be so necessary because a lot of the things you've been fighting for are already being seen. For instance, when you go to the primary school, you're seeing a lot of girls who are even more than the boys, and there are some other areas that women on their own have been able to go to. So why then do you still want to push for this?
I think that when we create access, it's important. So it is good that we have so many girls in school in the same way as boys. But if you check, even we have increasing numbers of girls at the tertiary level. But if you check, because of women's life cycles and because the space is not designed to make it easy for women to accommodate all the things that happen to us as we grow older and all of, at a certain point we shrink, not only in terms of our numbers but also in terms of our issues. So for instance, you will find out that there are certain professions, even as you say the doors are open and there are openings, there are certain professions that parents may never want their daughters to be part of, because when they get there, the patriarchal nature of that system works against women again, and that is why, in addition to policy, there must also be change in attitudes and behaviors, so that we understand that really citizenship is about equality. That as women and as men, we need to see each other as equal.
Well, the Women's Manifesto catalogs all concerns by women policymakers. While speaking at that event, the director of the Friedrich Egger Stiftung, Fritz Kopsiger, asked women to bring more to the table rather than just representation.
Basic truth that the underrepresentation of women in parliament, in political parties, in the ministry, in the ministries and other key institutions here in Ghana and many other places around the world is quite prevalent. There is an underrepresentation, especially in terms of numbers. It is also quite clear, and that even I, as a German living here in Ghana for a bit more than a year, that there is lack of sensitivity for women's needs and women's environment and women's lives in a male-dominated society. But at the same time, it is a basic truth for me that it seems that women's interests are sometimes quite difficult to organize, because I think there are two sometimes competing spheres. One sphere are the material interests and the cultural and social interests, many of those captured in the Women's Manifesto. And the other sphere is the political party affiliation. Sometimes these things do not seem to go together. The competition that comes in by belonging to different political camps is overriding the struggle to further women's interests in the country and the society. The other difficulty that I seem to observe is that the increase of numbers of women in key positions is not an end in itself. And mind you, I've talked to a number of women in Ghana, especially with respect to my work as the resident director of Friedrich Ebert Foundation. And very often I have asked women, why are you politically active? What is your goal of your activities? And almost all of them said, yes, I want to work for a greater representation of women in important offices. So I asked them why. Or I asked them the question, just imagine you would be a member of parliament, a minister, or even president of the republic for just 3 days. What would you do? Just imagine. Give me something on your minds. What would you do? What would be the prime substantial points that you would work for? And very often these ladies were struggling to answer this question. They were aiming for more representation, they were aiming for greater numbers in high offices, but what would come out of that, what benefits they would bring, or this situation would bring, there was a blank, and that has to change, Mrs. Chair.
It's an interesting part of the conversation he raises, Mr. Kopsiger, about women not just asking for representation, but backing it up with a bit more action than just showing up. A good move there. Let's see how it goes beyond the talk. Well, it's that time of the year when politicians begin to call the attention of electorates with promises and policies. The presidential candidate of the New Patriotic Party is promising people along the coastal lines of Ghana that he will set up a coastal development authority when voted into power. This, he says, will ensure the rapid development of coastal towns. Well, Journalist Maxwell Agbagba has been gauging the level of acceptability of this initiative in a fishing slum in Jamestown. Here's his report.
Right behind the famous lighthouse at Jamestown is a sprawling fishing community. At the top of what has become a tourist destination is an aerial view of the snaky slum. It is more of a concrete jungle. The brown rusty corrugated roofing sheets is an indication of the havoc the ocean can wreak on the people living here. First-time visitors are welcomed by the smell of pungent rotten fish, perhaps a gentle reminder of the main source of livelihood of the inhabitants. Like many coastal communities in the country, the shanty town is deprived of some basic life necessities. The flag bearer of the New Patriotic Party at Sekondi says an Akufo-Addo-led government would set up a coastal development authority to ensure a rapid development of the communities along the coastlines of Ghana.
I said they've been abandoned. The fishing communities along the coast have been abandoned by the society. And then another idea, which is going to be a central feature of our manifesto. We're going to establish a coastal development authority.
With the benefit of hindsight, many have questioned the relevance and feasibility of the initiative. Some policy experts are also raising concerns over possible duplication of functions by state institutions. But some residents in this coastal community think the initiative is the lifeline to the appalling conditions. Khadija Hassan is a 23-year-old mother. She was wading in the ocean with a 2.5-year-old son, Elvis. Elvis is not in school because her mother cannot afford it.
I'm not yet ready to take him to school. We need schools here. It will help us. We want our kids to be educated so we can also be proud of that achievement. My son Elvis has not started school yet. I do not have the money to pay his fees. The sanitary conditions here is also not the best. We do not have a place to dump our waste. We need big containers. We need more lavatories too. There are 2 public toilets here. They charge 40 and 70 pesos. Those who cannot pay defecate openly.
The major occupation of the people living around the coastlines is fishing. Any policy that will better the lots of the inhabitants must also focus on the development of the major source of livelihood of the people. Robert Ayi has been fishing for 35 years. He is distraught about the high cost of fishing nets and outboard motors.
We have difficulties with buying the nets and the outboard motor. It costs so much money and the price keeps rising astronomically. Another challenge that has existed for about 10 years is that some people use lights in fishing. The illegal fishing method will affect generations if we all should engage in the practice.
Nathaniel Fusulabi is also a fisherman. He wants storage facilities for their excess fish.
Yes, the initiative will help us. We face a lot of challenges here. There are times we get excess fish, but we do not have the storage facility, so we force people to buy it. We run at a loss because they do not feel any urgency to pay us.
The flag bearer of the New Patriotic Party, NPP, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, says he's going to set up a coastal development authority to ensure the rapid development of the coastal lines here in Ghana. But the question we are asking, what will be the direct focus areas of this institution that will be established to ensure this rapid development? Here at the coastal line of Jamestown, this is what we see: abject poverty, students, kids not going to school, and then the sanitation here also is nothing to write home about. We've had interactions with some fishermen here, and they tell us about the lack of storage facilities here. They also tell us about the high cost of fuel for their outboard motors. They tell us more also about the issues of theft. From Jamestown, here in Accra, my name is Maxwell Agbagba for Joy News.
You're still watching The Pulse on the Joy News channel on Multi TV, and still ahead.